Actually, they're called an escape. Escape.
It's detour to trail number 3. Yeah, that's the same one we did.
That's so fun. I thought I saw markings.
Yeah, I went to the bathroom there in the woods.
So did Bruno.
No, I didn't.
All right, welcome, Pondering Psalms 85. This is Curt Austin and my friend David Mullins over there. I'm going to do all the talking this week. He's just a pretty face. I'm seriously. We bring him in for the tech. That's pretty much it. So, Dave, how are you doing today?
I'm doing all right. You look pretty damper today.
Damper?
Damper?
Yeah,
damper.
Or
not
dapper?
Not dapper. You actually look damper.
Damper than I did
wetter.
last time.
Yeah.
Well, this is, folks, just to give you a little heads up, so the lighting is different because we're doing this in the afternoon. So we may not be on our A game. Well, okay.
Or our D game.
We've never been on an A game. But we are talking about Psalm 58. Nope, Psalm 85 this week.
It's your dyslexia coming in.
Okay,
it's right there on the screen.
It is. Psalm 85. It is a psalm of the sons of Korah. We did Psalm 84 last week, and we enjoyed that very much. And we're going to kind of tackle this one. I also liked this very much. It's very different than Psalm 84. I felt that's how I interpret it, but I liked it. What do you think about it, Dave?
I enjoyed it as well. It took me a little while to kind of get my bearings, I guess. But I think it was around Wednesday or Thursday, things started to fall into place for me.
I went through it, and one of the things, and I do this occasionally, not all the time. Sometimes I just read it, and I just leave it there, and I read it multiple times. But this time, it struck me really right from the very beginning that there were some key words in here that I really liked, and I think it started in verse 8 where he says, "Speak peace." I'm in the ESV version, but it was really helpful for me. Listen carefully to what God the Lord is saying, for He speaks peace to His faithful people. I loved that. I think, in this really weird time, having that, where God is speaking peace into our lives is so beautiful. And really from verse 8 all the way down through the end of the passage, 13, I just loved. I just adored the wording. I love the way it was written. And we can get to that, but I felt that this was a great psalm for this age.
Yeah. And when I was looking through it, like I said, it was around Wednesday or Thursday that things started falling into place. And one of the things that helped me was seeing the first few verses is kind of looking backwards, looking at the past. Then it was looking kind of at the present and in some ways looking at the future. So I kind of saw it encompassing all of time.
Yeah.
Because here he's looking and he's like, Lord, you poured out your blessings on the land. You restored the fortunes. He's looking back on what God did in the past.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because I thought like verse 1, 2, and 3 kind of went together. But yet there was an interlude between verse 2 and 3. And I didn't, as I tried to read that and think, what does an interlude mean? Kind of this musical flow is like, well, that's kind of a weird place to put it. It seems like it almost should have gone after verse 3. But
they're really not sure what these interludes are. I think the Hebrew term is... I just lost it. Selah. Yeah. Selah. And so different translations will say different things, but they're like, we're not really sure what it is, if it's a musical thing, if it's a poetry thing. So they just, I guess, just put in interlude and I agree. It seems like a weird place to put it.
This is a complete aside. And maybe, no, let's talk about it another time. But the question I have is, how can you, after thousands of years, not know what Selah means? How can the scholars not figure that out? Surely it's in some other ancient text, or it's in some other writing, or it got passed down somehow. How is it that that's just lost to antiquity? To
They
use
didn't have video,
To use an Indiana Jones term.
you know.
I mean, really. I mean, to me, it doesn't weaken my faith in the passage the reading. You know, like you have mentioned a couple of times that there are these unicorns where you just don't even know. You don't have a
Yeah.
comparison somewhere else in the text. It doesn't weaken my faith at all. But I just wish we knew just that little thing. It's used so often in the Psalms
Yeah.
that I wish we knew.
So maybe one day someone will, there you go. I mean, that's how you can make a name for yourself. Go back, start looking through all this stuff and figure out what that actually means. And
Probably
you
have to
will
know what
be
Hebrew.
celebrated. You will be celebrated.
Maybe people go, doggone it, we wanted it to be interlude. I can't believe you screwed it up for us. All right, so the first three verses are kind of looking back. God has been restoring and withholding his fury, which is always a good thing when God does that. And now is kind of a call to action currently, right?
Yeah.
Beginning in verse 4.
And I really like this. Really, the focus of the psalm is 6 and 7. Won't you revive us again? And I found that interesting. Asking God to revive us when we're the ones who have gone astray.
Yeah.
We're the ones that have kind of gotten off track. We're the ones that have kind of done our own thing, but we're asking God to restore us, to put aside his anger, and then to revive us so that we might rejoice in him, and asking God to show us his sod, his unfailing love, and grant us salvation.
I liked in this the restore us. In my version, it's verse 4. It says, "Restore us again, O God of our salvation." And I really like that it's our salvation, God. This is the relationship we have. There isn't anything we can do for you, God. But if you could do this for us, this would be great. I mean, yes, we could be faithful to you, and we could do what you've asked us to do. But there's nothing we bring to the table other than our faithfulness.
But maybe we know we're not going to do those things.
Well, we certainly know we're not capable of doing it repeatedly over time. Yeah. Which, I like, and again, verses 1 through 3, it's kind of a memory of this is what God has done for us in the past, even when we were unfaithful.
Yeah.
And now beginning in verse 4, we're asking you to do it again, even though we know we've been unfaithful.
Yeah. Yeah. And so show us your unfailing love as we show you our faithless service or faithless following, however you want to put that.
The ESV on verse 7, if you just go, it says, "Show us your steadfast love," or unfailing love.
The Hebrew word hesed is rich and nuanced, and so you will find various translations talking about unfailing, steadfast. I think there's some other things, unending. Some other translations of that
That's
Hebrew
good to know.
word.
Yeah, I mean, because
it's
those nuances matter sometimes in how you're interpreting it.
It's I guess it's the comparative to agape in the New Testament. That type of unmerited, unboundless, unending, amazing love. And really the only way that I've heard it translated well is if they almost use an example of it. So to try to find one or two words that actually reach the depth of that love, I don't think is possible. So I think that's why you see all these different translations for that word.
Well, that's a great thing to. I mean, if anybody's looking for something just to think about, or if you're still in the middle of reading this, you're watching this and you're going, well, I haven't quite finished my week yet, and I want to read it a couple more times. That's a pretty powerful statement. Then in verse 7, this love that has so many facets to it, that it can, that it reaches to us wherever we are, because it is so deep And remember the song as a kid, deep and wide, deep.
I remember
and
that
wide.
song.
Yeah. I mean,
There's
that's
a fountain flowing deep
and wide.
Yeah.
All right. So beginning then in verse 8, let me hear, mine says, well, I'll listen to that. I listen carefully to what God the Lord is saying, for he speaks peace to his faithful people. But let them not return to their foolish ways. Surely his salvation is near to those who fear him, so our land will be filled with his glory. I just think that's great.
I know, but it still surprises me that you're asking God, don't let us return to our foolish ways. You know, maybe that's a whole lead us not in temptation type of thing.
I think so. I think so.
You know, but we are hard-headed. You know, we're asking God to keep us from doing something that we are bound and determined to do. I mean, foolish ways.
I mean, you know, it's if you think about the emotional development of a 2 or 3 year old, often they want boundaries, right? I mean, some of the best parenting are those parents who help create boundaries and say, this is, you can't step over this. James Dobson used to tell a hilarious story about his 2-year-old in a basketball court, and it was like he came down and he said, you can go anywhere you want in the bleachers. It was during a practice, but you cannot cross this line, which put the child out into the basketball court. And the child was everywhere in the bleachers and continually looking up at Dad to find out if he'd crossed the line. And then Dad was fine, you know, he was staying within the boundaries. And then the child went down. He was describing willful disobedience versus childish irresponsibility. And he said, and the child went down and was standing there at the edge of this black line that leads, and he turns and looks up into the bleachers and then just put his toe over it and touched it and just looked at his dad waiting. You know, we want boundaries. And I think that's true in our faith journey as well. You know, it's helpful to have boundaries. If you've got the sky's the limit, then we'll try to shoot for that every time.
Do we want boundaries just so that we can cross them?
Sometimes, you know, I mean, Adam and Eve were the first ones, right? Don't pick that. Don't pick that from that particular tree. You've got everything in the garden, not that one. And we do the same thing. Yeah.
But you know, here the prayer is: don't let us. You know, don't let them. And I include myself in there. Don't let us return to our foolish ways, because we know your way is better. We know your way leads to life. We know that stuff, but we keep going these foolish paths. So keep us from doing that, Lord. We will be very, very grateful.
And I think and then also another recognition, which almost harkens back to verses 1 through 3. Surely his salvation is near for those who fear him.
Yes.
You know, this is the reality. You did it all of these times before, and we know that you will do it again. For those of us who are faithful to you, for those of us who fear you, this is just going to be a glorious place, a glorious time.
Yeah, and I do think the line, so our land will be filled with his glory. Surely salvation is near to those who fear him. And I just picture this group of folks that fear him, that actually are bringing glory into the land, filling the land with glory. And the question I would have is, what is our land filled with?
We don't have enough time to go into that.
Well, yeah, but here is a picture and a prayer that our land be filled with God's glory. And, you know, we make choices by choosing our foolish ways rather than God's ways. We are filling our land with certain things versus filling our land with God's glory. So
spend just a minute and talk about fear. This word here, that's not trembling in your boots, is it? It's not afraid of punishment or afraid of destruction, is it?
I think there could be some of that element in there. You know, when you talk about fear, most of the time it's you know, you think of fear of the Lord, but it's a great respect.
Mm-hmm.
A great respect for Alexa's talking to me.
Oh, doggone it. That's too bad. Let's pause just for a minute.
It keeps telling me
56 minutes.
Yeah, it keeps telling me to pair it. And so I hope it's not coming through on the, let me think. It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be coming through. So if I can just power through with her talking in my ear, we'll be okay.
All right. So,
So go back to say and talk for a few minutes about
yeah.
fear.
So, Dave, just a couple of minutes about fear. Fear him. What does that really mean as you've studied this?
Well, you might think it means, to be afraid or fear of punishment. And I think there's some of that element in it. A lot of folks would say, oh, it's this great respect. But I think with great respect, there comes fear that you will do something. And I'll just throw some stuff out. Fear that you will do something to harm the relationship. Fear that you will do something to move outside of the bounds that have been set up. Fear that you will do something to dishonor. Or I think the term the kids use is the one.
Those kids.
Yeah, I know. And so I don't think you can just say that it doesn't include, being afraid, because I think there is some things that you're afraid of. But I just get a sense that it's such high honor and respect that it causes you to be afraid that you will act outside of what honor and respect would look like.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, when I was a kid, Dad was not afraid to use his hand as a disciplinary measure on our rear end, and I did fear him. I feared that hand. I don't know that I feared him. I didn't fear him because he never ever directed us out of anger. Always as he was very, very patient. It's like very calm. But I never looked forward to the day when I needed that. And I did need it a few times.
Well,
my brother more than me, but that's a different show. All right. So let's move on. Let's keep going. Verses 10 through 13. These are the last 4 verses of this particular Psalm. I went through, I underlined keywords: unfailing or steadfast, faithfulness, righteousness, peace, faithfulness, righteousness, what is good. I loved it.
I mean, the description here is just beautiful. Righteousness and peace. I mean, the imagery, righteousness and peace kissing.
Yes.
Truth springing up from the earth.
Yeah.
Righteousness smiling down. The Lord pouring down his blessings. A bountiful harvest. And the righteousness going before him as a herald preparing the way for his steps. I mean, that is beautiful.
And all of this then comes as a result of verse 9, which is that go back to 9 because I want to. Right, surely his salvation is near for those who fear him, so our land will be feared. So it's for those who are.
Sorry about that.
That's all right. So if you look at verse 9, surely his salvation is near for those who fear him, so our land will be filled with his glory. It's kind of dependent on that part right there, right? Verse 9 is, surely his salvation is near to those who fear him. And then if they do fear him, if they do honor him, if they do glorify him, then the glory comes, and it takes the form of verses 10, 11, and 12, and 13. And you're right, it's so poetic. It's so beautiful. They've met together, and they've kissed, and this. Yeah, it's just excellent.
And if you want to do a deeper dive, I mean, look at the two words, righteousness and peace. What do those things have in common? What do they not have in common? And to bring those two things together in a kiss. And what does a kiss mean? I mean, there's just in that one line, I think there is a lot of rich and deep meaning. But we don't have, half an hour, 45 minutes to really dive in.
No, but it's great, and this is the kind of thing. So if I were to show you my Bible, all of those words are underlined because to me on day one they just popped off the page to me, and so I was able then to kind of go back as I read it each day, then to kind of think about what is it he's trying to get to, and the Hebrew word used in this psalm for peace is actually shalom, which is more than the peace that we usually think about. Mm-hmm.
it's well-being, it's balance, it's I would say it's not having dissonance or division within ourselves, not being pulled in, with competing priorities in 100 different places. It's about being comfortable in your skin. Again, that is, along with his said, it is a rich and nuanced word that really they can't translate into English. So you just use peace because that's probably as close as what we will ever get, at least, English speakers, and understanding the Hebrew mindset or worldview, I should say.
Yeah, I think Psalm 85 is just it is a wonderful word for us in this time. We were meeting with a friend last week who was telling us about how she lives every day with not anxiety, but with a truth that this world is messed up, and she lives that. Part of it is because of her skin color. Part of it is because she's a woman. Part of it is because of the socioeconomic stage that she grew up in as a child, and all of that is a reality to her each and every day. And so I said, it's just really strange times. And she said,
yeah,
the times are no different than they already were. She said, you're just more aware of it. And I really appreciated that honesty. And I think this psalm was a balm for me this week, knowing that while I'm aware right now, some people have always been aware. Some people are always living in a less than peaceful world, and God wants to bring that to each one of them. He wants righteousness and peace to kiss.
And I would say, this psalm really is a prayer. And the prayer is that revive us again, restore us again, but it's also a prayer of recognition. And right here is that recognition, that this is really what we want. This is really what the world needs. And it only comes from one source. And that is, his salvation, which is near to those who fear. And our land will be filled with his glory when we can embrace that. And this is what, as you said, Curt, this is what that glory looks like. Unfailing love and truth, meeting, righteousness, peace, kissing, truth springing up, righteousness smiling down, blessings being poured down, a bountiful harvest, and righteousness going as a herald, announcing his arrival and preparing the way for his steps. I mean, just amazing.
It's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
You know what I haven't done that I almost always do? I haven't looked at 86 because this, we're moving on. This next week we'll be talking about, hey, there I am all by myself. Next week we'll be talking about Psalm 86, and it is a Psalm of David, and so we'll be going into that 17 verses. I haven't read through it to know if it's any good. I don't know how he pulled.
It's okay.
But we'll see. But I think if you're in the middle of reading Psalm 85, or if you've got a couple more days, I hope this gives you a little bit to chew on, something that you can think about, and maybe pick your mind a little bit so that you'll be thinking about it in slightly a different way. Certainly, as we move on into Psalm 86, I hope that's true also, that we'll be able to bring something to you. So, Dave, any last parting words?
No, it's been great spending some time looking at the psalm,
Always.
and I pray that it leads and guides us out of our foolish ways into better ways.
And honestly, may God's righteousness and peace kiss you on the cheek, on the forehead, in your heart, that your life will be reflective of those things. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much. Watch us on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook, and we will see you guys in about a week.
Yeah. Blessings.
Okay. Bye.